All right, so we're a little bit behind our race. We'll cut the pleasantries.
Any questions before we get started?
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to this. You guys, I have to say, Dave said this, but you're knowledgeable and prepared. So what more could I want? So all good.
Well, we screwed the prepared part already this morning, so
we'll double down on the knowledge here.
Yeah, we'll stick to the knowledge.
All right, all right, here we go. No turning back after this. Here we go. 1, 3, 5, 7.
We're glad you're here. Come stay a while. You can make shapes and objects with your sounds transmissions from the side.
He is a multi-Primetime Emmy Award nominee for his shows King of the Hill and Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley also earned him an Audience Award at the 2014 South by Southwest Film Festival, as well as award nominations from the Writers Guild. A producer, a creator, a writer, the Holy Trinity that is John Control Altschuler Delete is behind other projects such as Blades of Glory, Action Point, Lopez, and the recent Tubi hit, The Freak Brothers. John, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Happy to do it.
Awesome. We'll begin with a scroll through some of the highlights of your career that are particularly interesting to us. Now, right now, you're currently in Rome. And when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I had to get it out of the way. Are you at liberty to talk about what you're working on right now?
Absolutely. Basically, I during the lockdown, as like there's a reason why it made sense for me to go to Rome. And while I was here, found an opportunity. We're doing a motorcycle race comedy called Moto Turo that's going to be set in Italy because it's an interesting place. People know Rome, Florence, Venice, they know the big three. But one of the frustrations for Italy is that the whole country is gorgeous. And so the idea is to do a sort of wacky race comedy like the ones I grew up with. It's a mad world, Cannonball Run, all of that, but on motorcycles through the Italian countryside.
They're always talking about the Colosseum. They never come and see our pizza.
You didn't warn me you're going to be doing impressions today.
So I apologize. I should have apologized in advance.
You should have. We ain't canceled.
So on your off days, what does one do in Rome?
I got to tell you, Rome has always been my favorite city. It's just beautiful. So basically, if it's an off day, you get up. Me and my wife go running in the Circus Maximus, which is where Ben-Hur was. Okay, you every 5 feet is something amazing because it all goes back 3,000 years, all through history. So basically, the nice thing is that Rome does a lot of the work for you. You just sort of live. I cook, so the markets are great. Get up, do a little exercise, go to the market, go check out the art. It's just beautiful. So the day-to-day is quite easy and quite nice.
You lost him at a run and exercise. That he didn't hear anything you said between that. I know right now.
I can only imagine that. With a history like that, yeah. I mean, St. Augustine goes back, a couple hundred years. And
that's not Rome, though.
Yeah. But I can get a little taste of what you're talking about.
Okay. Just real quick, a long time ago, I started developing a project for St. Augustine because in St. Augustine, there's a school for the deaf and the blind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you could not have two groups that could get along less well than deaf and blind. And the thing about St. Augustine, as you well know, is that it's historical and it's not.
Yeah.
So, the idea of having sort of a murder mystery type of thing going on, you've got, the Fountain of Youth on one side, you've got the Flagler, it's such an interesting, weird place. I've always wanted to set something there, but anyway.
I mean, when you have a school dedicated with the Helen Keller school like that, I mean, something has to happen, right?
Yeah, they just can't see eye to eye there.
I don't. That's tone deaf.
No, I like that. That would be a very interesting. The backdrop of St. Augustine would be interesting itself when you have like modern day stuff like Ripley's Believe It or Not mixed with like the big fort on the other side where people are literally in prison. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you get the weird ghost tours. Yeah. There's a whole cast of characters ripe for the taking there.
Yes. Ponce de
And it's
Leon.
in Florida, so the suspension of disbelief goes out the window. You could pretty much get away with anything. Your father was a merchant seaman. He later became an anthropologist, and you seem to follow in his footsteps, majoring in anthropology at UNC. When did your focus shift from writing to writing, and has your experience in anthropology helped to inform the decisions that, like, in your creative process when developing these unique characters that always show up in the projects you work on?
I've always been interested in writing comedy, but I didn't really want to major in it at Carolina. At the time, they had a really terrible communications department, which is why some friends of ours created the student television thing. Now it's actually quite good, but I actually majored in economics and anthropology because I'm nuts. But so I will say that being raised by an anthropologist, there is something where, and also being a Jew in the South, you always are a bit of an outsider. So you kind of look at the world like a little more analytically, and you start just twisting things on their heads to kind of get a better view, like turn it around. So I do think that could be the influence of my dad, and nothing with my family was ever a straight line. So we don't look at things like, oh yeah, there's no black and white. It's a whole world of gray areas.
Yeah.
I like that.
That shows in the characters that you write, because they could be described simply on the surface, but then once you get into them, there's nuance there.
I like it. Now, of course, we would be remiss if we did not thank good friend of the show, Dave Krinsky, for putting us in touch with you and helping to coordinate this. Now, if I'm not mistaken, per our research, you met Dave while studying at UNC, where you guys created the first comedy show to be produced by UNC Student Television. And it seems like you guys have essentially been working together ever since. Can you speak on that and tell us why that works, that connection you guys have works?
Yeah, we've been at it a long time. I think we have obviously we have a dynamic that works, and at least works for us, in the general sense. But creatively, Dave doesn't. He can fill lots of different positions. I'm kind of more of a bulldog. I just go forward, and Dave is a little more able to sort of move with what's going, with what's happening. So that has allowed us to do multiple projects, because that way, okay, so we were running 2 TV series when we did Blades of Glory, and then I produced Mike Judge's Comedy Extract. Well, because we have the ability to kind of be malleable, and we just trust each other and like each other, which is kind of odd because a lot of partners in Hollywood don't. So it's just kind of easy. We find each other very entertaining.
I liked something that he said about your guys' writing process, how a lot of people will be like, unless all of us think it's funny, it doesn't go on the page. But with you guys, you have this trust for each other that if one or the other thinks it's funny, you have that trust to put it on the page. It doesn't have to be a mutual agreement. The other one, like, okay, maybe, you find it funny. It's got to be funny. It's just not tickling me the right way. So I thought that was really cool how you guys have that faith in each other and your abilities.
Well, running a TV show will humble you and make you realize you don't know everything, because if you'll have table reads and King of the Hill, and you'll sit there and go, this is going to play huge. This is going to play huge. And then and even you're not laughing. Okay. Then somebody will say, could we try this? And you're like, nah, okay, we'll give it a shot. And it blows so, if you have any confidence that you're working with, and if they really believe it, you really should give it a shot.
Have you ever been in a situation to where you're there, like you thought something was going to play, and you're looking around the room like, what the fuck? Did they not hear me? Let me say this one again. I said, and then you're like, you ever been in that situation?
Well, almost table read, there would be something that you just thought. I mean, it's a weird alchemy. It really is sort of black magic, creativity, because it's written. Then we go through it with all the writers. We're all laughing. You bring these excellent actors in, And then when it all comes together, it'll just be like, well, you don't know what's going to happen. And no matter how much you plan, because if somebody could figure it out, they would. This is why Netflix is having problems. This is why Amazon will have problems, and always will have problems. Is that there's no algorithm.
Yeah.
If there was, great, plug it in. But it is all. The one thing that I will say though is that when something is real, people can sense it. And I think one of my favorite quotes from Mike Judge about me was that we got 150 episodes out of what pisses John off. And so if there is an actual backstory to what's going on, people can sense it. And I always use this example for how reality works, is that when I grew up in Greenville, North Carolina, and friends' parents were good old boys, and I still remember I'm at my friend's house, and this is back when there were records, and there's a place called the Record Bar, and I listened to my friend's parents. They had a bunch of other friends over, and they're all drunk, and there was a country star named John Anderson, and they go, "New John Anderson album's coming out. It's out. We got to get it." And it's like, well, how are we going to get it? It's midnight. It's closed. And this one guy, Benny, goes, "I'll tell you how. Me and a damn brick." And we put that in a King of the Hill episode. Back in the moment he said, how are we going to get in there? I'll tell you how. Me and a damn brick. The roof came off. It's just people can tell that when things are real.
Let me ask, who said that in that episode? Was it Dale, or who said that in that episode? Do you remember?
No, it was a country music episode. And
okay.
So Atkins just sort of played a day play. Yeah.
In a damn brick.
That's and there's so many uncontrollable factors when it comes to comedy. Like you can't control where the audience is at when they're watching that. It's like timing is so important, not just in the writing of time plus tragedy, but just the audience, the timing that they find, that they come in contact with your work. Is even myself, depending on where I'm at emotionally, mentally, I might find something hilarious today, and then a week from now, it might just actually frustrate me. It's so weird how I think comedy is one of the few genres that there's really this give and take between the audience and the writer.
Yep, it's awful.
It's absolutely tragic. It's a tragedy.
It's sad. Okay, you're always on trial.
Awfully sad.
Yeah. We read an interesting story about how you and Dave Krinsky got your foot in the door at National Lampoon magazine, and I don't want to throw the word bribery around loosely. So could you share that story?
Well, this is interesting. So this sort of connects to how we ended up getting a book deal in a very roundabout way. But we came up hard. Okay, we didn't know anybody. We were so. We had both graduated from Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, and we wanted to break into the business. How do you break in the business from North Carolina? Well, we knew we needed to get to LA, but we didn't have any money. So we were saving money, and I was working, delivering pizzas and working in a Chinese restaurant. And I had this idea, maybe if we got published, okay? Well, there weren't many comedy men. There's National Lampoon. Mm-hmm. That was all the bit. So back then, they had this thing called the Writer's Market, and it was a book, and you open it, and it would have every magazine and who to contact and what their rules and blah, blah, blah. So we find National Lampoon, and it says it's very short. National Lampoon accepts no outside material and no query letter. Don't even ask. Okay. So okay, well, I don't know what to do because we'd already written the stuff up, And so I got the names of the three managing editors of National Lampoon, and I wrote a very snide letter to each one, and I explained how important they are, and da-da-da. But because you're so important, here I'm enclosing a little something for your time, and put a $1 bill with each letter, and sent it off to New York to the editors of National Lampoon. And I was delivering pizzas. We didn't even have an answering machine. We had no dough. I came in, phones rang about 4:00 in the afternoon, And I pick it up, and this guy says, "Could I speak to John Altschuler?" I go, "This is him. This is Matty Simmons. Money talks. What have you got?" I'm like, "What? I got your dollar bill right here." And that's how we got into National Lampoon. And that's how, back then, National Lampoon was such a big deal because of Animal House and Vacation, all of this, that being published by National Lampoon it opened up all the doors in Hollywood.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Delivering pizza, you got no dough. Damn. Oh man. Now so you guys graduated in 1985 and moved to Hollywood or Hollyweird, where you spent a few years as drivers and, as you mentioned, PAs before catching a break. Now, what was that decade like from 85 to 96? And what role did Howard Gottfried play in getting you from PA to actual writers?
Well, it's I don't know if it's interesting or not, but basically we had no money, and what Dave and I found is that we could get these jobs as PAs, and they paid about $60-70 a day, and our rent was $600 a month, and we were splitting that in half, $650 a month. It was really cheap. It had no air conditioning. We were in the Valley of LA, which is very brutally hot in the summer. But what we found is that we could work for a month and save enough money to write for a month, because we didn't have the ability to work. Being a PA is a very hard job to work and then go write. So we would do that. And I got a job actually through a friend of mine as a PA on Torch Song Trilogy. And the producer was Howard Gottfried, who did Network and Altered States. He was Patty Chayefsky's producer. Great guy. And this is what I always tell when I do talks at colleges. I just tell them, like, "Oh, what should I do?" First of all, don't be crazy. That helps, okay? Because most people who come crazy, and nobody wants you, nobody cares about you. So, and don't give your 2 cents. This is what you do. If you get a job and you make the boss's life that much easier, because making movies is hard. Making TV is hard. So if you make their life a little bit easier, they're going to look out for you. And I was a very good PA. I would always, every morning, boom, there was the coffee ready for them. I was never late. I always had everything done. And one day I'm just sitting there in the office, and I'd gotten Howard his coffee, and he's like, okay, kid, you don't want to be a PA. What do you really want to be? He's like, "Oh, I want to be a writer." Well, I'm all about writers. So let's talk. And so we started batting around ideas, and it was kind of, we didn't really come up with something, but he read a script and he said, "If you will sell your 5th script." Okay. And I'm like, "Really? Yeah, you got a little way to go, but you will sell your 5th script." And I am not kidding. The 5th script we sold. Where you needed to, the only way to get there is through failure and try and try and try. And we sold our 5th script, and that kind of broke us in to Hollywood for a little while. Our whole, we had a nice big Hollywood sale, and then it just didn't go where it needed to go, and we ended up I remember getting down to $92, and we were offered a project with a comedian you wouldn't, Pauly Shore, who was a big,
the Weasel.
The Weasel, yes. And it was the most horrible experience. It was the pitch we had was The Sound of Music, but with Pauly Shore, the Weasel. And we had a horrible meeting, and they wanted to hire us. And I remember telling Dave, I was like, "Dave, we take this job, we might as well just hang it up." So we didn't take the job, and that ended up causing conflicts with the studio that was in charge. I don't know, to tell the story properly, is language a problem on your show?
No, go for it.
Okay, well, so we didn't want to do the job, and our agent said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Well, we don't want to piss anybody off. Don't worry. We'll ask for so much money, they won't pay for it. They'll move on, no problem." Okay. Now, the weird thing is that Dave and I were PAs for New Line. This was New Line Cinema. We were PAs for them. We actually moved the furniture into their offices. And so, okay, great. We don't have to worry about that. And she was actually supportive of the fact that, well, we think we could do something better. And okay, fine. Another phone call, ring, I pick it up, and it was this guy second in command at New Line, and he's just going, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" I'm like, "What? Who the fuck do you think you are? You're saying no to Pauly Shore? Fuck you!" And I'm like, "No, we're not saying no. We were deciding I'm not going to pay you $400,000. What the fuck? No, you're going to do it for 60, and then so fucking." Yeah, we that's been our career. That we're very nice guys, we're straight shooters, yet somehow everything we do pisses people off.
I've been doing this for a while. I know exactly what you're doing. 400,000 is saying no.
Who the fuck do you think you are? Excuse me. Who the fuck do you think you are?
Oh, that's so funny.
Right. We were buddies, and Pauly Shore was a big star. We just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But that's the best thing is as an artist, you still knew it wasn't about the money. You just didn't. If you don't have a passion for something, your work's going to suffer from it.
Well, there's something interesting. Yes, that I can't remember who said this, but whoever said it, I'm quoting them, not me. But everybody takes the biggest gamble in the world going to Hollywood, and the moment they have a break, they never gamble again. Okay, so that's that I've always been like, no, I mean, look, this is going to sound strange, but I can run a steak and cheese shop. I can be like, I've always known that I could go back. I could do something else. And I didn't go out to Hollywood to be miserable and do stuff I hate, so.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's yeah, I've never heard that before. It's like usually that's the end all be all for people. There's like, what do I do if I don't put these skills? Like you can find happiness in doing other stuff if you have the ability to do that. That's a great tool to keep in your back bargaining tool to keep in your back pocket. So I think people recognize that.
If you not that everybody has to like everything Dave and I have done, but we do. Okay,
yeah.
We like everything we've done, and that's very rare in Hollywood. And my wife married me when I was a PA. I own my house. So I always, like I was talking to my man, I have the lowest level of fuck you money probably in the history of Hollywood. And what it is, I just the ability to say no. And it does piss people off. Hollywood's a very interesting fact. We've had a lot of problems from turning down money because that's what they have on you. And if you're turning down money, they think you're not part of the team. And what the hell's wrong with you? And it is a little weird, but you only go around once.
Yeah. Looking at your credits on IMDb, it's like you and Krinsky are this perfectly functioning bicycle, and then you have Mike Judge, who is a perfectly functioning unicycle, and every so often you three come together for a perfectly functioning tricycle. Did that relationship begin when you guys were hired as writers on King of the Hill in '97?
Yes, it did. It was interesting because Mike was not around the offices that much, but when he came, because he was based in Austin then, and he would come in for the summers, and he would come in periodically. And there's something sort of interesting. We connected right off the bat. Like the first pitch I ever had, he just, the other guy didn't love it as much, but Mike just loved it. It was basically about when I was in Greenville, North Carolina, the jobs that I would have. When you're young, your first job put you under the thumb of usually mean morons. And we just hit off because I worked for a mean moron, selling drinks at Ficklin Stadium, which was the East Carolina's football stadium. And Mike worked for this mean moron as a dishwasher where I love the story that the guy would say you have to wash the dishes for 60 seconds. So count. And so Mike's like, no, count faster. Which he thought there was some sort of connection with it. So we just hit it off, and it's a long involved story, but basically we connected just on a very, nothing level. He tended to like our stuff. And season 5, the wheels came off the show completely. And Dave and I were very low on the totem pole because we went to state school. We did not go to Harvard, and we came in, it was fine, but the show wasn't making it to air. And so we just were like, well, let's just get some of the other writers. It was so paralyzed and falling apart so completely, it wasn't moving forward. So we just started writing scripts. It's insane, but we were bored. So we would get the writers, we'd write scripts, and then King of the Hill, the guys, they had to use them, and they worked. And that, and then Mike Judge found out that it was Dave and I doing this, and that's when we became, sort of a mini team, but we do our stuff, he does his stuff, and we come together. It's become almost impossible for us to keep working together, which is a shame. There's a few things, like he wants to direct. I got 2 things he wants to direct, but if Dave and I do things with Mike, and it's not really his fault, it becomes Mike Judge. And that became a big problem on Silicon Valley. And we realized, well, you know what? It's not his fault. It's not HBO's fault. It's just the way it is. Nobody wanted to hear, how I, came up with Silicon Valley. They wanted it to be and so if we do anything with Mike, it will always be that. So it's like, so everything that Mike does is good. So he'll be fine. And we will probably come together more probably on like a feature, like have a movie that he really wants to direct. And, but we work really well together. We just sort of.
That's really cool. That's you guys actually started a production company together, right? The 3 of you guys?
Yeah, that's sort of a long, it's sort of tedious that we got funded, and the funding agency, who was actually kind of great, they had one big flaw. They wouldn't give us money to hire somebody to help run the company. So you got, Mike Judge, he's in Austin doing what he's doing. Dave and I are running 2 shows, and one for this company, MRC, and we're supposed to run this, like find the projects, and it was the biggest burden. Like, I don't take money anymore because of that. It's like, because it's a curse. You sit there and you go like, well, how do you spend? And we had to spend the money. It was insane. It's everything wrong with Hollywood right there, but they gave us a lot of money. And if they had given us a little money to hire somebody to just sort of keep the trains moving, and it would have been really great for everybody. But so it goes.
Okay. Now, you brought it up, so I thought it was a perfect segue. Let's talk about King of the Hill for a minute. By the way, one of my favorite shows of all time, right up there with The Simpsons. You name it. Like I religiously watch it still to this day. It is one of the best shows out there. So let me ask you this, being that I am from the South, what is the main difference when it comes from constructing a joke that laughs with the South versus at the South?
Well, this was actually another reason why we connected with Mike so well, is that we actually like, one of our problems with Hollywood, and Mike had this problem in New York and LA, is that we always say we have the horrid stink of the middle class on us. Okay. That Hollywood, they love rich, and then they love an idealized poor, but they don't really like normal people. Okay. Well, we sort of came up that way. So we don't hate middle America. That's where we came from. And we, like, the funniest people we know, were not professionals. They were just people trying to basically get through the day. Like, Dave's friends in Fort Lauderdale were funny. My friend, I picked tobacco, and these people were funny. And so if you like the mix, you can make fun of it. And Southerners are very generous if you get it right. Okay. They're so used to being mocked incorrectly and oddly. I remember when people just they have no idea. I mean, look, it was easier for me to be Jewish in the South than in LA. Okay. So, which sounds crazy, but you know, Southerners are very polite, and you know, people don't get that. But anyway, that's what it boils down to, is that if you like and I think it's with anybody, you know, doing a project set in Italy, Italians are very, very sensitive. They have almost inability to make fun of themselves. But I think if you do it right, you can get there. So I think that's it. I always liked, I didn't always like the South. When I moved there from Illinois, it was the worst year of my life. But then you sort of settle in and it's a vibe and it worked, you know? So that, I think that's the answer, that we just like, you know, my wife gets she doesn't find rednecks as charming as I do, because, you know, there's a difference between the redneck that is sort of that's a funny thing, and actually, you know, being in
Clucks.
You know,
the Clucks, hashtag the Clucks.
Yeah,
hashtag the Clucks.
Yeah,
with a K. Let me ask you this, because I think you hit it perfectly when you said it's basically people trying to get through their day. And one of the things I always loved about King of the Hill was I didn't have to be a redneck to see that opening sequence with them all standing there and just moving throughout the day, but they're all still there. I've seen that my entire life. Has those guys been out there all day, like at different points, but they're all you guys nailed that. That happens all the time.
Yeah, well, Mike nailed that.
Okay. That means you nailed it.
I think that's why you guys work so well together. So I was going to say Mike Judge does that well, where he nails the middle class. He doesn't reduce them down to a stereotype. Like one of my favorite characters is Diedrich Bader in Office Space. Yeah, I'm doing the drywall there at the new McDonald's. That line right there is not funny on the page, but just in the context of who he is and how he's proud of it. Like, yeah, that's my McDonald's.
Even
like,
when he hands him the bottle, but no, thank you, I got it.
Yeah,
that was my first time ever seeing one.
They're just like it's such a risk, because unless you've been subjected or like personal experience with people like that, then the joke might kind of fall flat on you. Because it is really like you had to be there.
Lawrence, if you had $1 million, you spend it on 2 chicks, type of chick that double up on a guy like me would.
Back to King of the Hill. This earned you 3 Emmy nominations. And I was wondering, did you feel like a writer the first time you wrote something, or did it take recognition and accolades before you felt comfortable calling yourself a writer, like to people when they ask what you do?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I do know that I was very adamant not to call myself a writer until I sold something. And I figured that was the mark, because it's hard to sell something. But what I'm very proud of is that when we sold that first script, even though got down to $92 and we had no air conditioning, I never went back. I never stopped being a writer. So that was the mark for me. And then the slight difference is that I didn't consider myself having a career until I was about 15 years in. And my wife's going, well, what do you think you of course you have a career, but it took, I think that's where success makes you go, oh, well, this is my career. You know, I will not be doing anything else. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. So like 15 years in, you finally put away the blueprints for the sandwich shop.
Just make
that's exactly. I made a portfolio in case I had to do advertising, and you're exactly right. I got rid of it.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not going to have to make sandwiches after all. Right on.
There's a saying that says, I wish someone would have told us we were in the good times when we were in the good times. So let me ask you this. Were you ready for it to be over when it was actually over?
Have what be over?
King of the Hill.
Absolutely. Well, we were, I mean, to be honest, we were part of the, Mike, it was interesting. Because it was such a rough road until it got, we took it over and then he got happy, but he was ready for his own reasons to stop 2 years earlier, but we were like, well, here's the thing. I think we got great shows. And by the last season, we were just so done. I mean, we did 270 episodes. I think and once again, it boils down to, I want to like what I'm doing. And if you look at that last season, it's still pretty good. If we had done another one, I can tell you it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't have been good. And it was a King of the Hill. I love it. I mean, obviously, we were on for 13 years. We ran it for 7 seasons. So we love it. But it's still a little hard to watch because it was so hard and it took so much out of you. But we were very ready to be done with King of the Hill because I just didn't ever want anything bad on my watch. So there you go.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, because you guys had other things going on at the same time as King of the Hill, so it wasn't like you felt this need to stick around because this is all there was. I think it becomes evident when the network is forcing creators to churn out 1 or 2 more seasons because they think the audience wants that and they can get more money out of it, and it just feels forced. But the fact that you guys had things going on,
creators like money. That's why there's so many reboots and whatever, which, maybe sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, you can tell when shows go past their prime, there's only one motivation, is that it's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, they don't get me wrong. I still, like, if you really like the characters, there's a certain guilty pleasure in watching a show jump the shark, as they say. Like, if you're really
Hank's dad, I could have watched Hank's dad for 3 more seasons by himself.
Yeah, like, I don't even care if this is shitty. For me, this is just comfort food at this point. So just keep doing it.
Right.
What's the most important lesson that you walked away with from King of the Hill?
I don't know if it was a lesson, but when you write as many shows as we wrote and had to rewrite them, what it came out is like, there's nothing we can't do. And I know it sounds, but it's like, we're so not daunted, because before, like, you thought it was like Oz and everything is, and it was a hard show, but the truth is, you just do it. And that has made everything since much easier. And you start realizing that it's all in your control, and you don't have to make things that are bad. So I don't know if that it wasn't really a lesson. But it was a little bit, is that, yeah, you just do it. 2 shows. Okay, we'll do it. You just do it.
Yeah, I could imagine there's like the comfort level rises with the confidence in running a show for that long and it working. You kind of go away with like, not that you can't do any wrong, but you don't have to.
Well, but also the great thing about TV, and back in the day when you did 24 episodes a season, or if you go back when they did 30, you had to work, you had to do it, and you learn a lot because you're doing a lot. Now, I think of the many problems with the new systems of delivery is that you do 8 or 10 episodes, you write them all at the same time, so you don't learn anything. Right. Okay, we would learn on every script, like, got Tom Petty to be this character Lucky, and then, he was really good, and then he wanted to come back. Well, you couldn't have planned that ahead, and then you'd find this actor does this act. That got a big laugh, and you could follow it, and the shows would grow organically. When you try to chart them out completely, you have problems. And I think that's why so many shows don't have second seasons anymore.
Limited series.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they may watch it, they may not, but it's all too figured out. It's in a bubble. And then what do we do? And also the streamers are asking for it to be all figured out. So if it's that complete, well, then going on is very hard, difficult. So
we'll get, I think, if I remember correctly, we'll get into Tom Petty in just a little bit. But speaking of guests on the show, is there a particular guest that stands out to you as a favorite, or like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy is coming on, or this girl?
Wow, I know this is just I know punting, but when you have that many great guest stars, I'll tell you the most impressive thing to me on the run is this actor Dave Herman, who was Michael Bolton in Office Space.
Oh yeah.
That guy nailed so many characters. And if you were in a jam and he comes in and does it, he freaking nails it. So I'm not kidding. Dave Herman is a miracle. And but Tom Petty was one of when he actually said, I'll do it. And then he came in, and this is the thing. I show up for the table read, and when a show's been a hit for a while, everybody gets a little, not lazy, but they show up late. Well, I'm always on time. Okay. So I'm in there, and it's just me and Tom Petty, and I'm sitting there like, hi, and we're chatting. I was like, wow, you're really punctual. He's like, yeah, well, in my business, you got to be, because you got it with the unions and everything. If you're not on stage at 8 and then off at 10:30, you're getting fined. You're being hit. So I'm on time. So I'd say Tom Petty was the most exciting experience on that show.
I love what you said about Dave Herman, because again, we're movie geeks and movie buffs over here. You said he was in a jam, and I immediately went to Office Space. PC load letter. What the fuck does that mean?
Just just the way he looks at the dude with the jump to conclusions, Matt. No words spoken, just the way he looks at him before saying, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. He was great in Idiocracy too. Like it has the electrolytes. He's such a good character.
Nah, in my diary.
Oh God, yeah. I got my pistol point cock. In 2007. Blades of Glory was released. You and Dave Krinsky were hired to rework an existing script for what was going to be a Ben Stiller picture and turn it into a Will Ferrell film, correct?
Yep.
All right. So this was essentially the first time that you witnessed your words coming to life on a big screen in a feature film. And you have amazing comedic actors like Will Ferrell, John Heder, Amy Poehler, Will Arnett, Craig T. Nelson, and more, Nick Swardson, and it goes on. They're breathing their talents into it. Do you remember how you felt during the first viewing watching that on the big screen, or if it was on a big screen?
Oh, it actually was always on a big screen, because Dave and I were running King of the Hill while we were brought in for 3 major rewrites, the beginning, middle, and end. So we were like 3 big rewrites. So we only saw it screened at different stages. So we never saw it like in an editing room or whatever. But the first time seeing it all together was at Grauman's Chinese Theater, and you just can't believe. I mean, you really like, oh man, Hollywood, look there. There's a red carpet. And this is the great thing about a red carpet, is that there are a lot of stars there. And then they go, oh, you got to walk the carpet. So okay. You walked out and you saw maybe 500 cameras go like this. like it was waiting for a star to come by.
Save your flash, man. Get low.
That's funny. I can personally relate to that too, because I'm a photographer on the side, and I do. There's moments where like, I could take a break now. So I know that look that, all right, it's coming down. I'm going to take a breather until somebody. That's funny.
All right. In 2009, Altschuler, Krinsky, Judge, tricycle, if you will, would ride again with the comedy. With the short-lived comedy animated series, The Goode Family.
Criminally short-lived.
Very much so. I mean, it was gone before you knew it. So let me ask you this. What inspired the idea for that show, and what ultimately resulted in its demise?
Okay, I was listening. There was a radio guy on KUSC, local public radio in Los Angeles, named Larry Mantle. And he was the nicest guy. And he talked like this. And he was so old school liberal. Like, we don't have those anymore. But he was like, no, everybody has a right to an opinion, and everybody, and he'd do his show, and I was like, this guy's freaking great. And just, you know, it was a very prescient review, but a big TV reviewer, Brian Lowry, said his review was, this is a show that is so far ahead of its time that you better watch it now, because you're not going to see it. And I kind of thought, well, you know, this is a weird thing, is that some things, when you're a little bit anthropological, and you're looking at things, well, this whole good, everybody being good, well, I thought this is what everybody was going through, and you know, whatever. But the show probably would have been better 5 or 6 years later. And actually, there is interest, oddly enough, in bringing it back. That show was harder than King of the Hill, though, because once again, you got to like these people, and you're making these characters funny. Now, I love it. And the few people who saw it love it. They love the show. And here's the thing that my manager has pointed out. As much as I say, well, it was too far ahead of its time, this is really the truth. It was the highest rated summer show ever.
Wow.
When it was canceled, there has not been a show that got near the ratings that we had. Okay. So what happened is the world had changed, and nobody knew that the world had changed. So we were getting 3.0 ratings. Okay. Now King of the Hill used to get 10, 12, these, you know, whatever. And so they're like, well, this isn't working. Well, by that fall, we aired it at the beginning of the summer. They canceled it. By the fall, there were shows, everything were getting 4s, 3s, 2s. Now, by the time summer came around, and if they had launched us in the fall instead of the summer, it would have been more evident. But no, our ratings crushed anything since then. But we were right in the pocket of the worst time that you can imagine, because nobody knew the world had changed, and it had.
Yeah, I saw one interesting review about it where the guy was like, it gets criticized because it wasn't sustainable, because it was one topical reference after another, and there's no way to keep that momentum going for more than one season. They're like, but the one thing that people are forgetting when they say that is that it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
do you really just hold jokes in your back pocket out of fear, like we might need these later? Like, I would appreciate a show that just comes out swinging like that.
Yeah, and it wasn't. There was very little topical humor. It was sort of socially topical, you know, but
and too far ahead of its time. Like, I think people are just catching up now to how, like, the things that show addressed, as far as just where we're at now as a society. If it would fit perfectly now, almost too perfectly. It's kind of it kind of happened. The Idiocracy effect happened to it. It was a predictor.
Well, exactly. But look, great show, and I don't know, like, that there is interest in bringing it back. It's a very hard show. You know what characters are the ones that I would be interested in? If you ever saw it, we had these 2 working class lesbian characters who, like, and I knew this couple from a preschool thing, and you never see working class lesbians, okay? And like, they're, especially now, like, everybody's they're all, publishers and artists and blah, blah. Well, those characters played by Julia Sweeney and Lorraine Newman were so funny. I don't know. So those characters, those 2 still interest me. And Nancy Carell is one of the best. Her as an animated voice, I thought her as dance, as a Helen Good, I thought she was great. But there you go.
Well, hopefully it does. I think it would be perfect now. Even if it was a spinoff of certain characters, it plays so well now. With streaming services too.
Is that Steve Carell's wife, Nancy Carell?
Yes.
Oh,
I was thinking about the connections because he worked on Office Space, The Office. We tried to do a little something here. We're working.
Yeah.
We're working.
Yeah. We hired her. She was Nancy Walls, but she's Nancy Carell. Yep.
In 2009, the tricycle is still pedaling with Mike Judge's companion film, The Office Space Extract, which you served as a producer on. And to quote Office Space, "What do you say you do here?" The producer credit seems to have such a loose definition from one production to another, depending on who you ask. What did the producer mean for you on the production of Extract?
Oh, well, that one I flat out, like, if I produced in that, it's interesting. In TV, executive producer is the most important title. In features, it's producer. So if you see somebody with a producer title, they're actually usually doing something. Okay. If it's associate producer, co-producer, executive producer, not so much. But the producer title is the one that is sort of held on to. And basically, Mike was about, he didn't have the script finished, but we're talking about it, and I was like, oh, Mike, his stuff's just always funny, and it's very simple in a way, which is very hard. And so Dave and I got together with him, and we would just meet 2 times a week, getting it to a completed script. When we did, I was trying to figure out, well, how do we make this? Because Mike's had very, very bad experience. Like everybody wants his last project, but they don't want it at the time. So they all hated Idiocracy. Now, we want Idiocracy. They hated Office Space, and so people were not banging down the doors for Mike Judge projects. They want the last one, but at the time they don't want it. So we're like, well, we could go to the studios or whatever, but and this is why I listen to everybody, because the way I came up hard, I was in sound editing on King of the Hill with our sound editor, Glenn Lucas, at the time. And I'm talking to him about it. And he goes, huh, so you think you might do it independent? I'm like, yeah, I think I might do it independent. He's like, I can get you the money. And I'm like, well, you can get me the money? And he's like, yeah. And so Glenn lived in Manhattan Beach, California, and he knew all these bond traders for like Merrill Lynch, Countrywide, that there were a bunch of them. And he said, would you meet with them? I met with them. I really liked these guys. And then he said, well, what about Mike? So I talked to Mike, and we went down there, and they interestingly, correctly saw investing in a Mike Judge movie would be safer than being in the stock market. Okay. Because it was so freaking crazy. So, I mean, I don't think there's much more producing you can do than we help write it, then raise the money. And then the unfortunate thing is we had all the money raised, but it took a long time for some reasons with an agent, blah, blah, and we lost 40% of our budget because that's when the crisis hit. So Countrywide guy was out with, so we lost 40% of our budget, and then we had to go to Miramax to complete, and it turned into, it was tougher, but love that movie. The thing that's upsetting about Extract is that we went to Miramax and they said they put $20 million into prints and ads, and I started calling around places that I knew in Raleigh, and there were no prints and ads. And then they got, and I was told, yeah, you could sue them, you'll win, but there's no Miramax. There's nothing to. So it was. It's a
what?
It's a movie that did not get released. They did it on late. So anyway, but it's really good. So, but yeah, so that's what we did. And then we shot it in LA. But Mike's a very good, very economical director. and nobody wanted to. Nobody was in trouble because they were in it because they wanted to be in it. So Ben Affleck was great. Jason Bateman was great. Mila Kunis was great. Everybody was great.
Amazing. Yeah, it was all. Yeah, everybody was great. And I loved how it was like a mirror of Office Space, and that like Office Space was sympathetic to the worker, and then you flipped it on its head and extract the sympathetic to the business owner, and you get to see the other side of it. Like we're all in the same shit show at the end of the day when you put them together.
That was the whole point. Like, let's turn it on its head.
Yeah,
that's how you do it, man. Now in 2000, so let's keep going down this road. In 2011, you and Dave Krinsky took a trip back down the Mike Judge memory lane and went to his roots, serving as executive producers on and writers on the reboot of the show that gave every kid my age at the time a concussion. Just hush, Beavis and Butthead. Did you feel any pressure on reviving a show that was such an epic classic and renowned around the world?
Yeah, but then again, this is the thing: is that when we've done so many King of the Hills and we had saved a whole freaking series, you're like, all right, well, Mike, you want to do this? All right, so let's do it. It was really hard because everything was in mothballs and MTV had lost everything. And the one thing I'm very proud of about that series, MTV, we hit a weird time at MTV because I don't know if you know about MTV, but it was just a girls' network. So we came out and they're like, wait a minute, it's all girls. We still were their highest and then second highest rated show. But what I'm proud of is that I did tell Mike, he was very obsessed. Like he loves Beavis Butthead because he should. Mike likes everything he does in a good way. Okay, you know what I mean? No, not in like you're never going to see anything bad come from Mike Judge. Okay, he's just not going to do it, and he's talented. But he was very hung up on we did this, and when you look at the early stuff, if you tried to follow that 20 years later, it doesn't work. So I said, Mike, this is how we should do it. Let's just go off our memories and not watch the old episodes, okay? And let's not use the old, templates and such. But your memory of how it affected you is constant. And so I think that's why it worked. And, so it was really fun. I mean, Mike Judge, he always described like King of the Hill was like this much work for this much comedy. You had to really, Beavis and Butthead, you put that much in to get, it's just funny. And he's amazing. It's hard to describe this thing where the first time he went in to record, he goes into the booth and we're there and he goes to the far end of the booth with his back to the control room, and you have the script and he just starts doing it. Now all you see is his back, and he does them like a lot of actors do one role, and then if they're doing multiple roles, then they do the other role. He just does it, and with his back turned, it was just like magic. I don't know how to. You're just like, wow, okay. And then he's like, hey, John, Dave, do you think this one? And you're like, okay, and then you're back in, yeah. So, Mike is a genius.
Just got this B-roll of his back doing the whole season. All you just see is him just doing it.
Mystery Science Theater, Beavis and Butthead. That is so cool.
Crazy. That's a story about.
I wish like all reboots would approach them in that way instead of trying to like, oh, this formula worked perfectly. Let's just change a few of the details and use the same exact formula. Like what you said is perfect, because most people, they think they remember it exactly as it was, but they really are remembering how it made them feel. So to come at it like that, like let's not watch it, let's just go off of how the memories made us
don't go off the material.
Yeah,
because again, the world's changed,
and then you get something original that has the same spirit. Oh, that is awesome. In 2014, the office space of IT hit TV screens. Silicon Valley just posted 6 seasons, but not a movie. It's loved by audiences and critics. What was that show like to work on?
Well, it's sort of interesting when you say, like, this thing about it being a movie. I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from. Because
I'm just ripping on Community because we were always promised 6 seasons in a movie from Dan Harmon, and so I like to throw a little shade every now until that movie gets produced.
Oh, that that show's pretty amazing. But anyway, Silicon Valley was it was great and also hard, which is like the it was such a weird way it came together, because the original idea, like, I was reading this biography of Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, okay? And I'm reading it, and there's a line in there where Bill Gates is ridiculing Steve Jobs, saying, the asshole can't even write code, okay? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, okay? But I'm laughing because the guy creates the biggest brand name in the history of the world, and it's like, the asshole can't write code. Now, my brother was an electrical engineer. My brother-in-law was an electrical engineer, and started realizing that they're never portrayed properly. And then my brother told me what code was. This is it. The good thing about it is that it was good from the word go, I believe. Okay. So the bad thing is that it was there were battles, and, and there were problems with deals that became complicated. And then, because Dave and I we were only really in the trenches for 2, and then in there for 4. And part of the problem is it's the thing about them just doing 8 episodes. Okay. And we can't live off of 8 episodes. So that turned into a problem with HBO. And then but the good thing is, so you have this idea. At the same time, Scott Rudin, who's a major producer, had a deal at HBO, and he wanted to do a project about the indie gamers. Okay. And so HBO had heard, they heard, I pitched them this, and they're like, well, wait. They want, Mike, Office Space, and what about Scott Rudin? And then when I was talking to Mike about it, he got excited because he was like, yeah, they never get geeks right. They never get nerds right, because they're not, they're not, not that Big Bang isn't.
No, please speak your mind, because I can't stand that show. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
we wanted to be real. The people that we knew, my brother, and Mike was in that world. He, a little bit when he was in Dallas. And so what happened? So Scott Rudin, okay, that could be great, but I told Mike, I don't know anything about indie gaming. Because I don't know anything about indie gaming. So what Dave and I did is we started just working on Silicon Valley, and decided not to go that route. And actually, Scott Rudin was really cool about it. He goes, okay, well, I'm into whatever, but whatever way you want to go. And so it was. Then he had some big falling out with HBO. It's one of those things where there was a little too much background noise all the way through, but it was very rewarding. And the thing that I'm most proud of, okay, well, there's a lot of things, is that first of all, to have an idea at the right time is a good thing. And then Dave and I wrote the original pilot for Thomas Middleditch. Okay, we had met him because he had an animated show that we were helping him with, And we actually, the original script, his name was Thomas Peckering, because that's his mom's middle name. And we wanted him because Richard's an interesting role because he's a geek, but he has to be kind of cute. So he had to have this weird, and we're like, well, that's him. And nobody really wanted him, which was tough. And we stuck with him. And then Mike did got on board with that. And we ended up getting literally everybody that we wanted for that cast. And, like I said, the tough thing was simply that there was just the ex-head of HBO, to be blunt. It's pretty simple. He did not want this to be Dave and my show. And I get it, because Mike's pretty great, and he would try to give Dave and I the credit that we were due in interviews, and they don't want to hear it. So it's not just the bad executives. People don't. Our friends, they don't want to hear that we did. They want Mike cut, So
your own people. That's what they.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a little bit too much of that real Hollywood stuff all the way through, but it's really good. And the thing when you have Mike involved with something, and I'll tell you the lesson that we did learn from King of the Hill is a lesson we learned from Mike, which is that things don't have to be jokes. Okay, remember you were talking about that. Is like, yeah. So, anybody can write jokes. Jokes are kind of easy, and that is what we took all the way through, and that's what I'm most proud about Silicon Valley. Is sometimes you get a little jokey, a little broad, but in the context of the things, it still helped show you a world.
Yeah, that's so true. Like one of my favorite, it's no secret, one of my favorite shows is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And something I noticed with that is that you really have to be along for the journey through the whole thing to fully appreciate. I mean, it's funny as a standalone episode, but I've tried to show people my favorite episode is like season 3, episode 5. So I'll have somebody just watch this one, and I'm noticing like a lot of the jokes aren't landing because they've created this world and environment, and these things about the characters, but they don't even have to say something that's necessarily funny on the page, but because them, it's hilarious. And I think that
show's amazing. And my manager is Michael Rotenberg is one of the EPs on that, and this shows you how little I know. Okay, this is why you don't want me to do anything. Okay. So they bring Dave and I It's Always Sunny in Los Angeles, which was the original thing. And I look at this and I go, this is great. Okay. This is great. And comedy, they're interested, but they don't want it in Los Angeles. I'm like, no, this is perfect. This is the flip side of Entourage. Okay. This is the other thing. So no, leave it alone. And good for everybody. They didn't listen to me. And they did Sunny in Philadelphia. But the show is just kind of brilliant in its ability to, like you said, it's created a world. The world makes sense. It sometimes it's unreal, but that's okay. But it's jaw-droppingly good sometimes. Like my kids love it. And the interesting thing is that the actors are so good, but some of their shows are better described than even seen, because you get to the anarchy of the idea of how they must have just said, okay, this is what we're going to do. So
yeah. No,
anyway,
you don't understand. Danny DeVito thinks that he's a hero because he screamed a racial slur across the street. The whole episode, the whole premise is on that.
For me, it was the bathroom episode you showed me, and you were like, no, you don't get it because Charlie can never take a shit unless he has on a woman's dress or something like that. I was like, okay, so yeah.
All right, we could. That was my mistake going off on Always Sunny, because that could happen forever. We already delayed this conversation. I know we're getting short. I'm going to bring it back. with Silicon Valley, something that's really impressive to me, and we brought this up with Dave Krinsky too, is when you're writing the first episode, the pilot episode of the story, and you're tasked with having to create something that stands on its own to, intrigue people enough to say this could go on, but also within that same framework, set up things that could sustain a whole series after that. So how do you approach going into something like that and making it compelling?
Yeah. Well, what we tried to do with Silicon Valley was simply make sure that you understood Richard's drive, okay? And that the unique thing, there were two things that pushed that through creatively in my mind, and that worked for Dave and Mike also, which is that, so the things that struck me that became the bedrock of the first season were really when we first went up to Silicon Valley. We met all these people. Every single place we met, they'd say, well, what we're here to do, we just want to make the world a better place. We just want to make the world a better place. Oh, yeah, we make a show that we make an app that shows you where a bathroom is because we want to make the world a better place. Oh, nobody just wants to make money. No, they all want to make the world a better place. Now, these are the worst people on earth. Okay, they give Hollywood a run for being just the worst people, but they all just want to make the world a better place. Okay, now if you see that goes all through the first season, and so you wanted to have a comedic point of view, which was that these are really terrible people that our likable guys are dealing with. Okay, but their armor is, hey, I'm just trying to make the world a better place. So you had a comedic point of view. Then you wanted to make sure there's something that I thought was really important, is that this was the only time in history where these people are in charge. Okay, these guys are the Vikings of this era, and and it happened fast. They went from being beaten up and shoved into lockers to owning everything like that. Mm-hmm. And so what we did is just try to convey that. And something that was very important to Mike Judge was understanding, because he was humiliated a lot. I was humiliated a lot. When you come up the way we came up, is just understanding the motivation of this character, of like, there's nothing supporting if this craps out. Yeah. If that makes sense. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that
makes perfect sense.
So just for writers out there, just trying to give them little pointers to keep in mind if someone's ever tasked with creating a pilot. In 2016, it seems like you and Krinsky kind of went back to your roots of creating the first sketch comedy series for a network. So first it was UNC, and then 3 decades later, you created History of the World, Now We Know, for National Geographic. What was that like, returning to that sketch comedy format where you guys started?
It was great, but this is it would take too long. I'll try to give you a shorthand. That show was fantastic. We loved it. And we have every comedian in the world. And this is another one of those things where the world was changing, and we don't do anything anymore that we don't have an ownership in. To be blunt, this show is, Reese Darby is the host. We got all the Silicon guys, everybody in the world written. And it's funny and it's educational. We were ready to air. We had a $5 million ad buy ready, and then National Geographic got bought by Fox, and they killed it with a bullet in its head. They did it in a way where it would not allow us to sell it to another buyer, because this is how the world works: is that ever since Home Alone, they let Home Alone go to the studio, everybody that let it go got fired. Okay, so now every time there's a new regime, they kill everything from the past regime because it's not their money. Okay, so the worst thing in the world that would happen is if we went to, let's just say, Discovery, and they did it, and it was a big hit, everybody in National Geographic, the new people get fired and they're embarrassed. So they aired it without telling us and without telling it at 3 a.m. to do a burn, which is so it could never be sold as an unaired product. And this wasn't a fuck you to Dave and I. This is just how they operate.
Damn, that's crazy. Well, now we know.
Well,
Yeah.
Jokes would have been on them. I was up at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Jokes
All night.
Now, in 2017, you and Dave Krinsky produced a pilot that, unfortunately, and I do mean that with a capital U, didn't get picked up, which would have had given the world weekly doses of Geena Davis as a bounty hunter. I mean, is that not Long Kiss Goodnight every night? Why wouldn't something like this get greenlit?
Okay, I'll try to make this a short story. The writer of this project, Scott Prendergast, who actually is in Silicon Valley. If you ever look, he plays one of these executives from the pilot all the way through, and he's an interesting actor, but he's a great writer. So he comes to Dave and I, and he's got this project about a real bounty hunter in LA. Okay, I got to make this really short because it's long and involved. But basically, we sell it to Turner, and they were great. They loved it. They had some notes, and the notes we felt were fair, and Scott did not think they were fair and thought that it would flatten the character. And one of the things that they were worried about is that they felt that things happened like she seemed lucky, not like she was manipulating things enough. Thought it was fair. And he did not want to make the changes, so they brought in someone else. And it's a little complicated, but the script was still great. But they, Dave and I found a showrunner who said, because we're not 1 hour guys, and we were doing sitcoms literally at the same time. So we found a 1 hour guy that TNT was supportive, who said, I will not mess up Scott's script. Okay. I love it. Okay. And TNT loved it. Okay. This is how crazy people are in Hollywood. This guy who we found, and this was not Scott's fault. This is one of the great mistakes we made, is that Scott wanted to meet him and make sure everything, but everything was moving fast. And it was just like, okay, the guy swore, I love this script. I just want to run this show. He goes in, and the head of TNT just wants to shake his hand and say, be with you. He goes to the meeting. Dave and I aren't in the meeting because we're in the middle of, I think we're doing actually Beavis and Butthead then. And because we were in, we had a lot of, and we get a call from the writer going, well, that went bad. And we're like, what? He's like, man, I don't understand. I showed up, and it was like the guy just wanted to shake my hand. That he wasn't interested in me. Okay. And so I started telling him, you know what? I got to rewrite this from top to bottom. And you're going like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay. And so he blew up the meeting because it wasn't enough about him. And they were all saying how much they loved the script. And so then it fell apart. And at that point, what happened? Geena Davis was great, by the way. We had Geena Davis. They brought in this guy, and Roland, no, somebody, Toby, I don't know who it was. I can't even remember. I'm traumatized. And they turned it completely over to him because he was a one-stop shop. He produces it and writes it, and it lost every bit of greatness and subtlety that Scott Prendergast brings to his projects. And it was awful. I mean, it was so awful. You wouldn't pick it up. I wouldn't pick it up. And that's a shame because I think Dave and I, maybe we could have protected it or better, because we did it. We brought this guy in, but everybody said, no, and he was, yeah. So we brought in the guy that screwed it up, but Scott did need to be less precious about the changes. There you go.
Have you ever worked with that guy again?
with Scott.
No, the guy, the handshake guy.
Oh, actually, no. He moved on. He moved on to another place. But like I said, he was great. He wanted to make it.
Mhm.
He did everything appropriately. Actually, TNT and TBS were completely appropriate. Their note was appropriate. Everything was appropriate, and just
Handshake.
Currently, you have the Freak Brothers on Tubi, which you are a writer and producer on. What is the world of streaming? And you kind of touched on this before with the episode formats and everything, but is there any other differences that you notice or benefits or pros, cons to streaming platforms versus the traditional network television model?
it's just different. It's just different. It's what I said before about the doing everything at once, and the way that you sell them is different. The Freak Brothers, we were literally just helping some friends out, helping them get an animation production moving. So it's not really our show. But when people are doing something, you want to help. So we did get the first season fun to be a season 2, but the streamers, they're all very different. They have different goals. You don't know what they are. I wish I had a better answer. I can't tell you.
Yeah, it's such a rapidly changing environment. I'd imagine it's a difficult thing to answer.
That's what we just try to do what we do and be nimble. So it's like, oh, okay. I got Dave and I have a biotech comedy. Are we going to do it in America? We're going to do it in the UK. Maybe we'll do it as a European co-production. You just have to be nimble. And because also these companies, they change over so fast that what I told you what happened to us with Now We Know has happened to friends. Like, they're just churning over and over. And it's like, wow. So I have no answer.
Let me ask you this: for the brave aspiring writers out there, what advice would you offer them, the ones that are getting started or the ones in a rut? What advice would you give them just to get them going from your perspective?
Well, the thing that's different now is that you really have to do it. And by do it, I mean, you need to have a presence, an online presence, a Instagram presence. You need to make something like Issa Rae, her show on HBO,
Insecure.
I
was going to lose my black card if I didn't get that. Every woman in America was going to counsel me if I didn't get that. So thank you.
But, these days it used to be you wrote a script, and they go, it's good. She had to make a whole web series to get. So the bar is a little bit high on what the expectation is, but there's different ways to do it. Like, if you can just get clips, if you can just put something together. But nowadays they need to see something. They're not going to read it. That's the big difference.
That's a good. Wow. Sorry, writers. You better find yourself a director or get a reel done. Yeah, that's that makes sense because I think as a writer that would be smart anyways to fully convey what your big picture is as best as possible.
This is an interesting thing. I literally was talking to some friends the other day, and I miss when you had writers who wrote, actors that acted, and directors that directed, because everybody was really good at their jobs. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, there was a period of time when this was kind of great, that you had people telling their own stories, and they're the whole thing. They're writing it, they're producing it, they're acting it. I've gotten enough. Okay. Basically, here's my life. I'm an open wound. Here you go. It's not really well crafted. So it was really good because it broke open the rigidness of formula. Mm-hmm. Louis C.K., the problematic masturbator, which is like, what a dickhead. I gotta find that. But anyway. But his show was kind of revolutionary in that it helped break that mold. And then there's all these great, really good shows that are very personal. But now I'm like, I want to see professionals doing their jobs.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I think the balance is important. The information superhighway can often also be the disinformation superhighway. And we're going to run through some facts as we found on the internet. And you can either confirm, deny, or let the live lie if you choose, and elaborate as much or as little as possible. You could just say true or false if you like, and we'll move on to the next one. This first side is regarding King of the Hill. A live action Monsignor Martinez pilot was filmed but never aired.
True. And it was very good. It was written by Jim Dotrieve. Fox did not believe in it, so it was done incredibly cheaply down at the studio in San Diego. But it was a funny script. Jim's a really good writer.
True or false? That's where Bill Dotrieve got his last name from.
True.
Damn.
All right. Regarding the Goode family, the main character in the show, Gerald Goode, was loosely based off a character in Beavis and Butthead named Mr. Van Driessen.
Not true. The voice is a little similar because of Mike, but no, it wasn't really based on him.
Okay.
I'll let you take this one because this is you throwing that shade again. I see it written in the question. The shade about the movie that's promised. Go ahead.
Well, regarding Silicon Valley, yes, it was initially considered as a film before it was rewritten into a television series. Is that true?
Well,
right.
Is it true that you wrote came very close to making a Napoleonic War comedy with Johnny Depp, Steve Carell, and Jay Roach attached?
Yes, and we're still alive, but it is tough to make a Napoleonic War comedy. The Adventures of Brigadier Gerard. It's the best thing that Dave and I have ever written. And Mike Judge says it's the best script he's ever read.
That's awesome.
All right. Okay. High praise there.
Yeah. I want to go back to King of the Hill real quick. This is in quotes here. Producer John Altschuler created the character of Lucky Kleinschmidt, who described him to Mike Judge as a guy who ought to look like Tom Petty without the success. And this led to the producers to pursue Petty to provide the voice to the characters. And to their surprise, he enthusiastically agreed.
True.
All right.
We just wanted to get the designs right. And so we're like, well, he's from Gainesville. He's like that North Florida swamp rat sort of look. But and so that was the idea. And then it turns out that on tour buses, he just watched King of the Hill and he was in.
I hate Alachua County.
I knew you were going to fucking do that. I knew you were going to go Alachua County on me there.
The Hare Krishnas have taken over there. What the hell?
Hey, regarding Action Point, Johnny Knoxville popped out of his socket twice after he was injured while shooting a scene on the airplane.
True.
Damn.
Well, that's believable.
That guy he's the nicest guy, and the things that he'll put his body through, you're just like, what the hell? But yeah, true.
I also read that he got injured more on Action Point than in any of the Jackass films, which was absurd to me. I was like, that's got to be
I don't know if that's actually true because injured more. He got in. He had a bad injury. They shot it in South Africa, and the crew there's a lot of shooting going on in South Africa, so they didn't have like A, B, C, D crew. And it was tough. And but yeah, he was injured more than I would have liked.
Now, for this section of questions, we just asked for rapid fire answers with absolutely no explanation needed. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite food?
Dim sum, dumplings.
Worst habit?
Talking too much.
Sloths or hamsters?
Oh, sloths.
Perfect answer.
Beavis or Butthead?
Who I identify with, or who's more fun?
Who knows?
Okay. Butthead.
Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Favorite King of the Hill character?
That would probably be Lucky.
Favorite Game of Thrones season?
Wow. I would say season 2.
All right. If someone revealed the future of nothing but failed pilots that would never see the light of day, of consuming the remainder of your career, would you keep writing, or are you going to the sandwich shop?
Oh, I'd keep writing. A friend of mine did a show on failed pilots, and they're fantastic. They're either great and like, how did that not get made, or so awful that they're really fun. So.
All right, that's awesome. Rapid fire over.
All right. So before we all say our parting ways and say our goodbye, that you mentioned that you guys have a book coming out, and that you co-wrote with Richie Stevens, called The Gangster's Guide to Sobriety. I got to read that. Can you tell us about that?
real quick, this ties back to what I said before about my sound editor and us. I got an email out of nowhere from this guy, Richie Stevens, asking if we could get together for coffee and talk about the business. My lawyer is very clear about this. No, hit delete. Don't even read it or you'll get sued. And I read through the thing. It was such a polite letter. And I just know so much how it's like to be on the outside that I kind of, okay, so I met him for coffee and we started talking. And his story, his life was so florid. So from Dublin to San Francisco, like he moved to America just because the drugs were so bad in Ireland. And then he couldn't pay for all his drugs. So he joined this gang, but it was all Asian, but he couldn't pay his drug bill. So he goes, well, you're all Asian and a white guy. And so the story was so amazing, but we were trying to help him, but it was too much. And then I was saying, well, Richie, you're sober, right? He goes, yep, 10 years, AA, right? He goes, yeah, 12 steps. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take all these stories and we're going to do your life in 12 steps, where each step will be a chapter where we go into your past about the crazy, crazy shit you've done, but then also showing how you reach sobriety and how it sort of comes together. So that comes out May 24th. I can't go into it, but it'll probably, there's a better than even chance it's going to be a TV series. But please read it. Dave and I, that was another, it's like, let's write a book. I mean, we actually got offers on that before we wrote it as a book, and Dave has always wanted to write a book, and let's write it as a book. So
it seems like this could be like, whether it's people looking for inspiration to overcome addiction or just fans of biographies. And then you also have the audience of people that just like compelling dark comedy. Is it fair to say that this is for any one of those groups of people?
That's exactly it. Is that it's dark stuff, but Richie he's Irish. He has this bounce to him. Okay. And Dave and I, if people actually heard the pitches of everything from Beavis and Butthead, actually Beavis and Butthead, but King of the Hill through Silicon Valley, they sound dark, but we just don't do dark. We like dark as the fuel to work with. Mm-hmm. And so I think you nailed it. And we wrote it hopefully as an airplane read, where if you were in an airport and you saw that cover and you picked it up, you go, you know what? I could read this during a flight or soon after on a trip and get something out of it.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Are you working on anything else that you'd like the audience to know about that you can discuss?
There's a lot, hopefully good, but I'm Jewish, and this thing called the Kenahora, which is basically jinxing things. So I don't like to talk about anything because right now I got to make the horns and spit on the ground. But hopefully there'll be some things that come out and we'll talk again.
Yeah, Kenahora, jinxing. I got it. Kenahora.
All right,
sir, you were a pleasure and a treat to talk to. Before we let you go, you want to leave the audience with anything, a song, a book, a quote, a fuck you, or whatever? It's on you.
You know what? Just keep watching stuff. And just so you guys know, you are a breath of fresh air. You really did. You did research. Dave told me this. You knew things inside and out. I love that you're in Jacksonville. I spent too much time there. And I hope that our paths cross again.
Likewise. Hey, let's not, damn it, I forgot the word. Let's not Jewish jinx it. Say the word for me.
Jewish jinx it.
Krishna?
No, Kenahora.
Kenahora. Let's not Kenahora it, okay? Lick the horns. Hey, thank you so much, man. Hey, I really enjoyed our paths. We'll cross again, and we'll see you soon, sir.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here. Come stay a while. You can make shapes and objects with your sounds, transmissions from a smile. We're glad you're here. Come stay a while. You can make shapes and objects with your sounds, transmissions from a smile.